Well, the hearings are over, and judicial nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson is slated for a full vote by the Senate Judiciary Committee on April 4th. Well, what does it mean? Who will vote? And what was the experience like for those that were able to sit there and see it? It's Say the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Claville. We'll be right back in just a moment to discuss this issue with two phenomenal law students that experienced it up close. Welcome back. It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you again for joining us as we broadcast every Sunday live on the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation at WNSB, the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. This is a beautiful, beautiful March 27th. 2022 here in Hampton Roads. We hope that all of you that are listening to us across the country and the world are also experiencing a phenomenal and beautiful Sunday. Also, we have with us in the studio, as always, our producer, Marvin Folks, also known as DJ Scandalous, which can be heard here on WNSB, the Soul of VA, every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. And I want to give a quick shout out to Marvin Folks because he just received his acceptance into the PhD program for computer science here at Old Dominion University. Congratulations to you, Marvin Folks. Soon to be doctoral student, soon to be Dr. Marvin Folks. So hats off to you. And as a Spartan, he's a graduate here, undergraduate and master's degree in cybersecurity. So as a Spartan, he is embodying what the Spartan Nation does, going and continuing to do great things throughout the world. Congratulations to you again. Absolutely. And we like to, again, wish all of you out there a happy Women's History Month. This is the last Sunday of Women's History Month. And we know that this month we recognize some, not all, but some of the women that have trailblazed across every single area and sector and discipline in this country since its inception. But we haven't really scratched the surface. I mean, there are so many untold stories. I mean, what comes to mind is the Hidden Figure story of the women here in Hampton Roads that basically helped to put men into orbit and on the moon. And of course, they've honored them by renaming buildings after them and the like. But there are so many other stories that we have here. Great Spartans here in Norfolk State that are doing great things, and those that will continue to do great things. So we stand on their shoulders. And we honor them today and all through the month, and not just this month, but every single day. And today we're going to talk about another trailblazing woman who is breaking barriers and had to go through the fire, had to go through the sands, right? But she's breaking barriers and soon to be voted on, to see if she will be the first African-American black woman to be voted to sit on the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court. We've been doing a series on this particular hearing, this nomination for the nominee, the historic nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, as she, again, sits in a seat to ascend to a higher seat to serve on the highest court in the land. This is trailblazing for many, many reasons, because for 230 years, this is the first time a black woman has been nominated. Forget being voted on to be on the court, but just nominated. So we've been talking with law school deans, female black law school deans, law school professors, scholars. We've done our own analysis of this here on the show. And, I was fortunate enough last week to be invited by the Senate to sit, one of the U.S. senators, to sit in the room to hear the questioning that was going on. So the perspective of being in the room was absolutely phenomenal. And, we're going to break it down a little further, not so much on today, because I got two phenomenal young women, future legal scholars that are going to talk about their experience. But we're going to break it down a little further this week coming up on 89.5, 91.1, 89.5 on your dial. The NPR affiliate, WHRV, on Barbara Ham's show, Another View with the Claville Report. And we'll come back next Sunday, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as we get geared up for the historic vote. So she's going to be voted on April 4th. April 4th is when the Senate votes. So we'll see what happens. Now, all indications show that she's going to be confirmed, but you never know. You never know. But I want to talk about the experience from the view of in the room. And I'm going to give my perspective, but I want to bring in two phenomenal future legal scholars who are trailblazing in their own right. And these are two young ladies that I believe that everybody will know their name very soon, because what they've done is part of a group from Southern University Law Center, which I am an alum of, adjunct professor of law. They're trailblazing and doing phenomenal things. So I want to bring into this conversation very quickly Ebony Cormier and also Staci Dukes. Both are JD candidates 2023 and current students at Southern University Law Center. Ms. Cormier, Ms. Dukes, welcome to Stay in the Water.
Hi, good afternoon. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Ms. Dukes, welcome.
Good afternoon. Yes, thank you so much for having us today, and we're honored to be here to talk about this experience.
Absolutely. So, we want to. We've been doing a segment on this historic nomination, and from the nomination itself to the preparation to the hearing, and now we're going to talk about from the perspective of being in the room, and we'll also talk about the vote when it comes up next week. But I wanted to bring you two in because you two were there. You two were there, not just on the steps of the Supreme Court, but you guys got a chance to go into the room as well. And not only that, but you got a chance to be there to watch history. So I want to talk from your perspective, and I want to get your very first impression of what was it like to be there. Ms. Cormier.
Yeah, sure. So watching Judge Jackson as I sat there, I just realized the gravity of the moment. It was groundbreaking, feeling-shattering moment. I'm extremely aware, and I was in that moment, even though I was in awe. I was extremely aware of what was happening. It was an honor to sit in and listen to the Senate Judiciary confirmation hearing up close and personal. And Judge Jackson sat there, and she was stoic and measured and unwavering. I was inspired, and I was moved by what I witnessed that day.
Wow. Ms. Dukes, what was your first impression of just being there?
So thank you. My first impression, I was absolutely speechless as I sat in the room. The moment was just unreal. I could not imagine that I would have that opportunity. I mean, it was bigger than I ever envisioned for myself. We didn't know we were going to have the opportunity to go in the room in the moment. The opportunity came to us on that day. And I was excited, but it was I was just speechless. And to sit in that room and watch, our senators, and I happened to sit across from my own senator from Georgia, John Ossoff, and to hear him speak on behalf of the great state of Georgia, it was just an amazing moment. I was just speechless. I was pinching myself. It was just unreal.
Now I want to talk more about, as students, what you guys did, what you were a part of as representatives of Southern University Law Center in conjunction with the National Black Lawyers Association. But I want the audience to know a little bit more about you. So Ebony Cormier is a student at Southern University Law Center, graduate 2023 candidate for graduation. She's also the SBA parliamentarian, the chair of the Judicial Committee there, secretary for Trial Advocacy Board, She's a junior editor for the Journal of Race, Gender, and Poverty, and the National Director of Corporate Engagement for the National Black Law Students Association. And she is also a scholar for the White House HBCU Scholars Recognition Program. Ms. Cormier, we don't know how you do it, but also, you know, I mean, that's a lot, right? But also, tell us about why you chose to be in the legal profession.
Sure. So I've always wanted to be an attorney, and I saw a need in my community just early on. I would hear, you know, as they say, grown people talking, and people would need representation, or I would hear if they had a better lawyer. So when I got older and started to understand more, that's what I wanted to be. But I was afraid to take that leap. So my initial major in college was accounting. And then something happened with one of my family members that changed the trajectory of my life. And I realized I needed to learn more about the legal field. And so I switched my undergraduate major to criminal justice. And from that point on, knew not only did I want to, but I was going to be an attorney.
Ms. Dukes, you too are also a candidate for graduation at Southern University Law Center 2023. You're also extremely involved and active, not just on campus, but in organization outside the campus. What made you make that leap to say, I want to be a part of this great profession?
So a lot like my colleagues and my good friend Ebony, becoming an attorney was always the goal. I guess people would consider me sort of a natural-born advocate. I always found myself growing up advocating for peers, friends, and just speaking up for folks that wouldn't necessarily be inclined to speak up for themselves. So I wanted to go to law school. I did not really know how to reach that goal. You know, even though I grew up in a middle-class family, we did not have attorneys in the family, so I did not know how to get there. But so I went and got a master's in counseling, and I became a counselor, a therapist, mental health therapist. And the more I grew in my field, I began to work with attorneys. And it just led me back to my first love and my first dream and passion of going to law school. And I finally made the decision. And I saw through them attorneys who looked like me, who I worked with, that I could actually do this. And I took the leap and applied.
Wow. You know, it's interesting how our lives influence our decisions to serve others, because even though, you know, lawyers, there's a glamour that people see to it. You are basically the problem solver and a servant to people. And it takes a lot to put yourself out there and say, hey, I want to leave and what both of you did, you left something that was comfortable and looks like you chose your calling.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. I left the career in financial services. I'd been there for 17 years, doing really well. And actually put in my 2 weeks notice and started started in the summer at Southern University Law Center. But it was something that needed to be done. I knew I couldn't hesitate any longer. I'm married. I'm a married mother of 4. I have 2 daughters, 2 sons, and I can't encourage them to, you know, follow their dreams and do, you know, follow their passions, and I'm not doing the same. And so I kind of felt hypocritical in that sense. And so I just stepped out on faith.
Absolutely. Ms. Dukes?
Same here. You know, I was comfortable, you know, doing well in my career, but there was always something pulling me away, you know. And as a therapist, I was an advocate for those that were less fortunate. I worked a lot in my community. I enjoyed the work, and I felt like I was making a difference. But I felt like you said, I was called to something different. I was called to help people in another way. Some of the same people, but just in another way. Like, a lot of my clients had serious legal issues. And while they did experience mental health crises, you know, what kept them coming back is the fact that they could not resolve the legal issues. And so I just decided one day that I wasn't going to put it off any longer. I did not know how I would do it because at that point, working and acquiring things and having bills, I just didn't know how I would shut my life down to do it. But I didn't wander long. I did what I had to do. And I packed up and went to Louisiana, and it was the absolute best decision I could have made. And like you said, from the first day I sat in the classroom at Southern University Law Center, I knew that I was supposed to be there.
Wow. You two were a part of a group, and it's a group, but I actually call it a movement. But you two are part of a group that actually traveled to Washington, D.C. in order to be a part of this. As a matter of fact, for those of you that are listening, the voice that you hear from our two guests may sound familiar because they were featured on NPR, National Public Radio, on a story just last week. And this particular group, these law students that traveled to Washington, D.C., they were featured in CNN, ABC Nightly News, ABC World News, also on NPR and many other local and regional publications. Tell us, Ms. Cormier, what was this group about? And tell me about your experience from deciding to travel there to actually getting there and experiencing all of it.
Yes, the process to get selected to travel there, we had to submit an essay, explaining what this moment meant to us. And I just expressed that I understood the gravity of the moment, and that since the Supreme Court was started in 1789, there had never been a black woman to sit on the highest court. And I thought that was odd, seeing as now black women are the most educated demographic in the United States. And so my essay was selected as one of 50 students to travel to D.C. With Southern University Law Center in conjunction with Demand Justice. And once we got there, it was just this feeling of this is something greater than myself. We traveled there and woke up the next morning and getting ready to walk to the Supreme Court. This buzz just started to generate around these students from Southern University Law Center, and we were also there with some public defenders. We were dressed to the nines in our SULC cardigans, and we were chanting, and it was just a powerful, powerful moment. And it just started to, the word travels quickly around DC. I don't know if you know this or not, but
absolutely.
By the time we got to the Supreme Court, it was so much press, and we don't have any official media training, but everybody just jumped into press mode, and it was just a wonderful thing to see students talking to all of these different media outlets. Very exciting to be there, and it was just a memorable, unforgettable moment.
Wow. You mentioned that word travels fast in D.C. That's exactly correct. Once you cross the Potomac, there's not a secret. One of the things they say that there's in D.C. the secret is there is no secret. So there you go. Ms. Dukes, what was how did you get there? What was your experience as part of this group? Of course, it was part of hashtag We Demand Justice, vote for, support KBJ, right? So now she has an acronym, and also part of the National Black Law Student Association that you two are part of. What was your journey?
So, as you said, I currently actually serve as the president of the SULC chapter of BALSA. And so when I saw that the opportunity was presented to us, I immediately jumped on it. As a matter of fact, my fellow colleague here, Ms. Cormier, sent me a text and was like, check your email. We have to be a part of this moment. And so I responded to the email, and I just expressed why I absolutely had to be there. This was something that I could not miss for anything. I expressed how important it was for me to be in the room. I expressed how important this moment was for me, especially as an aspiring attorney who looks a lot like Judge Jackson. And after that, we traveled there. We did have some hiccups in our travel just because the trip was not planned months in advance. It was something that was put together very quickly and very seamlessly, but, air travel, there's delays and hiccups. So we did have some hiccups, and the group that I traveled with, we got in really late. We missed the dinner the night before because there was a dinner hosted, and there were a couple of special guests that came to the dinner, including folks from the media. And we missed the dinner, but we got in late, we ate, we got up early, and we were ready. And just the energy in the room that morning at breakfast as they kind of explained what we would do and how we would march to the Capitol, because honestly, we didn't know what to expect. We were kind of getting directions as we were in the moment, as we were moving. So we were told to wear comfortable shoes because we would be marching to the Supreme Court. And we marched from our hotel, which was close, around the corner up to the Supreme Court, and just the energy was amazing. We were chanting, we demand justice, confirm her now. As a matter of fact, Ms. Cormier was our leader of our chants because she's, as you know, she's very high energy. So she carried the crowd, and just, we were marching all the way to Capitol Hill, all the way to the Supreme Court. And actually, at some point, we were outside of the building where the hearings were being held. And as we got closer to that building, it's like our voices were amplified. And we were louder and louder, and just seemed like we were on a microphone. And we saw folks coming to the windows of the building where the hearings were being held, looking out of the window like, what is happening outside? And we were just demanding, confirm her now. She's qualified. We are here. We support her. It was just a magical moment, just being amazing there and just feeling the energy of being in D.C. As a matter of fact, I said to some of my colleagues, there's something about being in D.C. Once you hit the district, the energy just changes. And so it was just an amazing feeling, just being in there in the moment. Even if we didn't go inside, which obviously we were thrilled when we found out we were going inside, but just being on the outside, just being there, knowing that she was in there and what she was facing, and that we were there, and we truly believed that from the outside of that building, she could hear our voices. And to know that just gave us, so much gratitude, and just we were happy to support her and be there for her.
We're going to talk about being inside the room in the second half of the show, but I want to highlight one of the articles on CNN. Again, this was reported ABC World News, ABC News, CNN, local newspapers, and also NPR. And on CNN, CNN.com, the title is "I See It Now." It says 39-year-old Ebony Cormier did not grow up seeing the possibility of a black woman on the Supreme Court. In fact, living in Enos, Texas, Cormier does not remember seeing a black attorney, let alone a black woman attorney at all. She says, Claire Huxtable was probably the first black attorney that I ever saw and like. That's TV. By the way, she's the dean of the Fine Arts School at Howard University. Still on Monday, she sat in the building on Capitol Hill in tears. Cormier had just watched Jackson sit with her hands atop of her desk and a measured smile on her face for hours, and finished the first day of her Senate hearing, fully aware of the glass ceiling she had just shattered. A third-year law student at Southern University Law Center, one of only 6 historically black law schools in the country, by the way, and mother of 4, Cormier traveled to D.C. with her school in partnership with Demand Justice, a Democratic group focused on judicial nominations. Quote, "It was surreal. I got a little emotional when she started talking about her girls. I have 2 girls, and I can't wait to share these kinds of moments and have them understand the gravity." Ms. Cormier, you said that while wiping tears from your face. Do you remember that?
I do remember that moment. I was very emotional as her friend and colleague of 30-plus years spoke about her and just the kind of person that she was. And then Judge Jackson, gave her statement, and she spoke about, the sacrifices and missing out time with her children and hoping that they understood and appreciated the sacrifice. I can relate to all of that. Being there in that moment and just witnessing her speak and just poised, and it was just something to aspire to in that moment and now. When I think about it, I was moved. Like the article said, I was moved to tears. It's a special moment for me.
And likewise on NPR, which was reported just last week, it states that in watching Judge Jackson field tough questions about her credentials, the future jurors saw themselves and their own struggles reflected in her responses. Staci Dukes, a student at Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge, put it this way, quote, "I think her being in this position shows that it's possible. We can do anything. The sky is the limit." Dukes was one of 100 black law students and 50 black public defenders to attend a series of events hosted by the group Demand Justice. In order to be selected, Dukes wrote about the impact of Judge Jackson had on her in her career. Dukes said, quote, "It was a reflection of myself, and it just further confirmed that, you know what? I can do this. I can do anything in this field." Ms. Dukes, do you remember that moment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It gave me such hope as I was sitting in that room, and I wasn't far from her parents. And to see her parents sitting there, I honestly felt like my own parents sitting in the room, especially when I learned that her father attended my undergrad institution, which was North Carolina Central University, another HBCU.
Absolutely.
And when Senator Booker brought that up, and I wanted to throw up my ego, but I kept my composure
because you didn't want to get thrown out.
Right. I wanted to stay, so I kept my composure. But just I could relate to her experience. It was my experience, and I sat in the room and I thought to myself, I never even saw this possible for myself or anyone that looks like me. But to see her and to see her parents and the support of her parents in the same way that my parents have always supported me, they would have been sitting in the room just there, just like her parents were. And to hear, that her father, like my mother attended an HBCU, Talladega College, the experience was so parallel that I could feel her experience as she sat there. And I felt very, very connected. And it did give me hope. And it let me see that, you know what, Staci, you can be in that seat or any seat that you choose to be in, any seat that you're prepared for, because she was overly prepared and overly qualified, and it was just inspiring. And, yes, it made me feel like I can do this.
Absolutely. And, again, for those of you who are listening and tuning in as we continue this discussion about the historic nomination and the hearing and the process of confirmation for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson as she waits to be voted on to ascend to the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court, which would be the first African-American black woman to be a member of the highest court in the land. 230 years. And this is the first time that a black woman's never sat on a court, but I want our audience to understand that a black woman has never been nominated to sit on the court. So it wasn't even a thought. All right. So now we go from thought to conception to actually reality, going through this process. So right now we're speaking with two phenomenal future leaders in this field, Ebony Cormier and also Staci Dukes, both who are Juris Doctorate candidates at Southern University Law Center, my alma mater, here of 2023, and both are part of the organization of National Black Law Students Association, also known as BALSA, and extremely, extremely active in the university. And as you can hear from our conversation that we're having about this experience, it was something that, it wasn't a class assignment because you guys had to come back and do work, right?
Absolutely.
And look, and just for disclaimer, Ms. Cormier is my former student. I taught her constitutional law there at Southern University as an adjunct professor of law there. And I told her just be herself because I'm not grading her this semester. So, but we're so excited to have them here. You can read about the information that we talked about, their articles. Again, go to CNN.com. Also go to abcnews.com, worldnews.com, and npr.org. And I'm pretty sure you can go to whatever regional station that you are affiliated with or in your area and just put in "We Demand Justice" and you'll see what's happening. So we're going to take a 1-minute break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the perspective of being in the room, exactly what took place, what happened, and what to expect. This is State of Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We'll be back in just a moment.
The new sound of Hot 91 celebrates Women's Empowerment Month.
My name is Sadeja, and I am a graduate student at Norfolk State University. Tammy Williams is now a majority owner of a new multi-million-dollar film and television studio in Atlanta. Williams has over 25 years of experience and has written and produced films, biographies, documentaries, entertainment, and network news. Williams and her partner own Cinema South Studios. Ground will be broken for the new studios this month. Tammy Williams is now the first Black woman to own a $135 million studio in Atlanta.
Celebrating Women's Empowerment Month. It's the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA.
Hi, it's Dr. Eric Claville, award-winning host of State of the Water, where we bring policymakers, movers, and shakers to you to discuss real issues and current events impacting African Americans. Tune in every Sunday at 1 o'clock here on WNSB Hot 91. State of the Water is engaging, educational, informative, and impactful, an initiative of the Center for African American Public Policy at Norfolk State University. Welcome back at State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you again for joining us as we broadcast every Sunday live on the campus of the Norfolk State University, Virginia's largest and greatest HBCU in the Commonwealth and also in the country. Here as we broadcast at WNSB, the soul of VA Hot 91. We're continuing our series of discussing this historic nomination, the hearing, and the coming process of not just nomination, but voting for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. For the entire month, we've talked about the process. We've brought on the last two shows, deans of law schools, and more specifically, African-American women deans of law schools and legal professors. And that's significant because there are less than 40 Black female deans of law schools of over 200 American Bar Association approved law schools. So we're very fortunate to have that opportunity to bring them in to talk about these things. As a matter of fact, the dean from NCCU, Ms. Dukes, who's on the show now, her alma mater. So we have now talking about the experience of traveling there with a group of law students, outstanding law students for the National Association of Black Law Students, BALSA, and also being in the room. With us, we have Ebony, Cormier, and Staci Dukes. Both are law students at Southern University Law Center, my alma mater. They've talked about their experience of traveling there to D.C., the energy, the excitement, but also the gravity of the situation of what they were partaking in. It's history in the making. And of course, we don't understand a lot of this, that when we're in these historical moments, that is history, but we take a chance to look back and say, wow, look what we were a part of. So we're going to talk a bit about actually going into the Senate office building and sitting in the room during the questioning. But in 2 days, for 2 days before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Judge Jackson demonstrated that she is unequivocally qualified for the Supreme Court. Judge Jackson, she showed incredible grace under pressure. Matter of fact, the first day of questioning by members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, she thoughtfully and thoroughly answered questions from the senators for nearly 12 hours, demonstrating the temperament required for a Supreme Court justice. I mean, I remember we had a deposition one time. It lasted 11 hours. 12 hours is a long time. And Judge Jackson's answers were substantive. They were in-depth, demonstrated the depth and breadth of her experience across the legal system. As a matter of fact, she repeatedly made clear what matters she believes are policy matters left to Congress, and said, quote, "I am acutely aware that as a judge in our system, I have limited power, and I'm trying in every case to stay in my lane." So these were we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the questioning, but I want to bring back in Ms. Cormier and also Ms. Dukes, to future bright stars in our legal field. I want to get your perspectives. Ms. Cormier, tell us about from the point you came to the door, because you had to get a Senate staff to bring you in, into the Senate building, going through the elevator, going to the table, getting checked in, and being seated in the Senate Judiciary Room?
Well, first let me say, we went to D.C. not even knowing that it was a possibility that we could get into the building. So to be tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, you've been selected to go into the hearing was an amazing feeling. So, of course, being the person that I am, I'm documenting everything. From the time we got on the elevator in the building that we were in on Capitol Hill, to the walk across the street, to going through security, then meeting the Senate staffer. And then when I walked in that room, and just so happened, Senator Cruz from Texas was speaking. Now, I sat there and I listened, and I began to get a little perturbed. But then I looked over at Judge Jackson, and she was unmoved. It was at that moment that I understood why President Biden nominated her. Because in my, I was all frowned up and, shaking my head no when he was speaking, no, don't do this. But she was tempered, and she sat there, and she took it with grace, style, and class. And I was, again, the word that keeps coming to mind is inspired. How could you have these darts thrown at you constantly and just sit there and take it? But she did, address it later on in the week. But in that moment, she sat there and she listened and she looked at them and was poised. And again, I was totally inspired, and I just wish that I could have given her a hug in that moment and told her, thank you for breaking this glass ceiling. Thank you for being this person that you are to be able to sit here and take this madness.
Ms. Dukes, when you got the notice that you could be in the room, tell us about that moment.
So when I was told that I was selected, because out of the 50 students, 4 of us were chosen to go into the room. So Ms. Cormier and another student were partnered together to go first, and then myself and another student went in after they came out. And I was beaming. It took everything in me not to scream. And so as Ms. Cormier said, we walked out of the building that we were in, which was across the street. We were having lunch. I could no longer eat. I just had to get over there. And so we were escorted across the street, and we stood outside to wait on the staffer from the senator who allowed us to have access. We were waiting on the staffer to come outside. And so the representative who walked us over said, I can't get in touch with her. And I said, well, what's her name? So she said the person's name, and I haven't told this story to anyone. So you heard it here first. This is how desperate I was. She says the person's name, and she's like, I've emailed the office. I've called the office. I'm calling her cell phone. She's not answering. She was supposed to be outside at this time when we walked out here. She's been on time all day, and now she's not here. I immediately jumped into, action, and I found the person on LinkedIn. And I sent her inbox, and I said, hey, we're with the representatives outside. We're the students that are supposed to be inside. Just letting you know we're here. And she came outside. So I was like, I am getting in this. I didn't even mention to the person who walked us over that I had done that. But when she said the name, I was like, I'm getting in here in any way possible, by any means necessary, because we're supposed to be in this room. So as we walk in the room, actually before we left, they were on a break, and Senator Durbin walked past us, and he's like, hey, I want to take pictures with the students from Southern. And so folks were taking pictures of Senator Durbin. And then just before we walked in the room, the staffer who was escorting us went to pull the door handle, and he said, well, hold on, you guys step aside, let the senator walk in, and it was Senator Blumenthal. So from Connecticut. So he walked past, he spoke to us, going in the room. So, at this point, I'm just in complete awe, and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe this is happening. And I'm trying to remain calm. And so then we go inside, and they say, take whatever seat you want that's empty to the right or to the left. So we sit down, and I look up and I see the seal on the wall, on this marble wall, behind all these senators sitting behind the desk, and it's the United States Senate. And I'm just, again, in disbelief that I am sitting in the room with senators, the senators that represent this country. And so a few minutes later, Senator Booker starts to speak. And when he speaks, I am moved to tears, and I am trying my best not to hold back tears because his words were so moving, and I felt everything he said, his support, his energy towards an excitement. You could just tell he was probably feeling what I was feeling on the inside as he was having to address, and give his opening remarks. And it was just an amazing moment. And then Senator Ossoff spoke while I was in there and expressed his support. But he also talked about, this moment and how important this moment is and how we have not come as far as we should at this point because it doesn't make sense that this is the first to ever be considered for the position. And he talked about some of the issues we have in Georgia. He talked about Ahmaud Arbery and what happened there with that case and how the folks that were responsible for ensuring justice swept this situation under the rug, and it wasn't until the media and the public got involved and this video got spread around that folks even paid attention and that his family, that justice was served for his family. And so his words just moved me. And, it was just an amazing moment. Like, as each person spoke, and even the detractors and even the folks that spoke negatively or tried to, what I consider were reaching for things to disqualify her, discredit her, it wasn't even, to me, it wasn't even as powerful. To me, the folks that were supporting her and speaking highly and speaking truth about her qualifications just outweighed any of the negativity that was in the room. And so it was just a powerful moment.
As a matter of fact, some of the committee tried to mischaracterize Judge Jackson's record and views. They had the attacks on her sentencing record have been discredited, though, by fact checkers from major news outlets, including the Associated Press, New York Times, and National Review. And for legal research, you two know very well how important it is to fact check, right?
Absolutely, yes, indeed.
And I want to give our audience a little bit more of an idea of the honor that you two had to be in the room. Again, it was limited seating, and there was individuals. There are tickets that you have to get, and you have to have a personal invite from one of the senators, United States senators. So to be able to be there in the room, the building was actually closed to the public. So when you talk about having an escort, everywhere you went in the building, you had to have that escort. And being able to come in the building, in the room, sit there and watch history, and also contain yourself, right? I mean, again, it's something that you'll remember for the rest of your lives. And I think you guys attended on Wednesday. Is that on Tuesday? Is that correct?
No, it was Monday. Monday opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you attended on Monday. I was there on Wednesday toward the questioning as it was wrapping up. So we came in and we started 9 a.m. that morning. And our senator for Louisiana, Senator Kennedy, and there were several other senators, I think Senator Johnson and Senator Durbin. It was an interesting exchange that was taking place before the questioning took place. And I looked at Judge Jackson, and she was just sitting there. As you said, very poised, very calm, cool, and collected about the moment, and she wasn't wavered in any way. So when we take a look at qualifications, when we take a look at how this process is just not someone you pull a name out of a bag, but is someone that's been through FBI checks, is someone that's been through a vetting process that is very, very intrusive. Okay? Mm-hmm. Several times, because this is her third time being before the Senate Judiciary Committee as she served on the district court bench, the appellate court as a federal judge, and now here looking to serve as the first African-American black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. So, Judge Jackson is a brilliant legal mind with the utmost character, integrity, and there are many that believe that she will make an exceptional judge. As a matter of fact, her nomination has been supported by a wide range of individuals from law enforcement community, including the Fraternal Order of Police, International Association of Chief Police, to conservative and Republican legal and judicial voices, including retired judges Thomas Griffin, Michael Lutwin, David Levi, who also endorsed Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, to individuals who are survivors. And the presentation from the hearing was praised even by Wall Street and the editorial board. I want to make this point as well, just give another shout out to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is where Southern University Law Center is located. Captain Frederick Thomas from Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, who is president of the Black Law Enforcement Organization. He was there on Capitol Hill and testified on Thursday. So on Thursday, we had supporters and also detractors that were able to come and present before the Senate. I don't know what it is about Southern and, our HBCUs, but it looks like we're everywhere, right?
Indeed. And that's a good look.
Absolutely. So I want to let our audience know about this process. So we're going to go into it just a little bit more. And I want to get your take on your two take on something before we end. So the nomination was what it was. The president nominated Judge Jackson, and she went through a courtesy talks and meetings with U.S. senators. Now, this is not actually in the actual process as it relates to the Constitution and the rules of Congress, but it's something that's customary. And I want people to remember when President Obama nominated Merrick Garland, who is currently the Attorney General for the country, none of the Republican senators would actually take a meeting with him. So here we have meetings that were taken by Mitch McConnell and other Senator McConnell and others across the board. And then there's that Monday of opening statements. So you go through the process that Monday, opening statements, where you two attended, and everyone gives their statement. And there is a viral picture that's going out now of Judge Jackson giving a special thank you to her daughters, and how one of her daughters is beaming looking at her. So if you haven't seen it going across social media, take a look at it. And then on Tuesday, that's when the questioning starts. That's where the 12 hours of grilling about her record, every single vote, every single thing written, parsing every single statement that's ever been said on her judicial and her federal record as it relates to being a part of the U.S. Sentencing Commission. And then day two, questioning is not 12 hours, but it's half of that that takes place. And then after that, you have the statements testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on that Thursday. On April 4th, there will be a vote in the committee, up or down, to support her nomination. We have Republicans who have said that they will not support her. They've already come out to say they're not going to do it. And it's a possibility that this may go down a straight party line split, which means that we could have the first black vice president, female vice president of the United States, break the vote, the tie, to confirm the first black female U.S. Supreme Court justice. Talk about the irony, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the irony. So that's where we are. So we're waiting now to get the vote and so forth. And then, of course, there's a swearing in process. But Ms. Dukes, Ms. Cormier, on the day that you witnessed the statements that were going on, tell us a little bit more about what you saw, not just from the people that were speaking. I know you mentioned Senator Ossoff, who also mentioned that there is not a public defender's program there in Georgia, and he's actually put up legislation to fund that. And Judge Jackson is actually a former public defender, federal public defender. So it's a perspective that comes to the court that we never had. But from what you're hearing, Ted Cruz, Senator Ossoff, Senator Durbin, who's the chair, watching Judge Jackson, give us your perspective of your view and how you saw it in the room, Ms. Dukes.
So it was interesting. As each one of them spoke, she has a lot of support. So, obviously the day I was listening, a lot of the Democratic senators spoke in support. And then there were those who attacked her credibility, attacked her record in their opening statements. There was a focus on particular rulings in which they used portions of the rulings without context to attack her. And as she responded, I was so proud of her because, the first day she wasn't able to respond to those things. But, as we went on through the week, she was able to respond to those things. But even listening to them, I thought to myself as a law student, like, you're reading a portion of the holding, but you're reading one statement, but you're not reading the entire holding of the case, or you're not considering everything else that went into making this decision. So to me, and maybe it was the perspective of a law student, I recognized then that this was an attack that they were using not all of the information and intentionally giving a piece of the information to sway folks to think a certain way or, to lean a certain way. And so I thought that was unfair, to bring up a statement out of a holding and not talk about the context of what led to the decision. So that was a little disheartening for me because I'm like, everybody has a responsibility. These people a lot of them are lawyers. Like, you understand that you can't give a piece of information and sway people a certain way without telling the truth. Like, there are other things we all know that go into the decisions that judges have to consider. When sentencing is done, they are not just weighing a recommendation by a prosecutor. They're not just weighing, one person's perspective. There are a lot of things, and she was able to respond to that later in the week. But I just thought that was unfair. Also, knowing her credentials and being well aware of it. I mean, many of us across the country at this point understand who she is and what her credentials are, and the fact that she's well qualified, even more so than those that have come before her for the same position. But as a black woman, as a black law student, as a black professional across any professional field, you understand and you're prepared for that. You know that you have to do more to prove yourself. You know that you have to work harder. You know that your work product should be perfect or has to be perfect to measure up against folks who aren't necessarily held to that standard. So she was prepared for that. She knew that was coming, just like we all know. So it wasn't a surprise. It was just disheartening to see the tactics that were used to try and discredit her. But I don't think that they worked.
Ms. Cormier, what was your view?
Yeah, so just to speak to what Ms. Deuce just said, specifically, I remember in one instance, and this was later on in the week, and they were talking about compassionate release and how one sentence she said, everybody wants compassionate release or something to that effect. And so that's the only thing they said. And when she responded and she said, and the very next sentence, I say, but unfortunately, we have to protect our communities and you cannot be released. And so what Ms. Deuce is saying, that the attacks were out of context, because if you continue to look at the entire ruling and the entire opinion that she gave, ultimately she didn't let out the offender. So they were just grasping at straws. But being in the room that day, I specifically remember leaning over. There was a black woman sitting next to me, and I leaned over, and I didn't even know if we could talk. I didn't know what we could do in here in the room. But I said, can we take pictures? And she told me yes. And so I raised my phone up high, and I was taking pictures and zooming in. And then someone tapped me on my shoulder and was like, you can't do that. But that's, bucking the system. I did it one more time, and I got another tap on my shoulder. But I was just too excited to not, how can you be in this room and not document the moment in some way, shape, or form? But I just remember that vividly, just leaning over to the lady next to me. And then my colleague, Mr. Jordan, was sitting on the other side of me, and I told him, I said, they said we could take pictures. So then he started taking pictures, and it was just a buzz in the room, staffers coming in and out, people coming in and out while the hearing was going on. And I just remember it being in that moment and just feeling like this is just so surreal that I am sitting here in this historic Supreme Court confirmation hearing for the first African-American Supreme Court justice that would be a woman. And so when I think about it now, I have a big smile on my face, because it just takes me back to that moment where, I was in the room listening to the senators, and they were all giving her compliments about how gracious she was with her time, and how, some of them went over the time period, and she allowed them to continue their questioning, and she answered all of their questions, and she was very transparent, and I think that speaks volumes because she has nothing to hide. She's here to answer your questions. She's highly qualified, and again, that was just a moment of just cheesing. I couldn't stop smiling.
As a matter of fact, Judge Jackson has been extremely transparent and forthcoming throughout this entire process, as evidenced by the many tens and thousands of pages produced to the Senate on her record. Again, tens of thousands of pages produced on her record. She provided documents totaling 12,000 pages from her time on the Sentencing Commission. And the Obama Library produced nearly 70,000 pages of material related to Judge Jackson's nomination to both the Sentencing Commission and the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. And with these materials, on top of nearly 600 written opinions, the Senate Judiciary Committee has all the information it needs to evaluate Judge Jackson's qualifications to sit on our nation's highest court. Both of you mentioned in reference being a black woman in this profession, or just being a black woman in general, but especially in this profession. Over 12,000 pages she had to give. Over 70,000 pages the former president had to give of her nominations. Over tens of thousands of pages were provided and produced, all just for one moment in time. So the question becomes, is it all worth it? Is it all worth it? As a matter of fact, I want to read this last take that was an interview provided by you, Ms. Dukes, in World News. It said that being in D.C. along with other black law students and legal professionals reaffirmed Dukes' decision. Quote, as I prepare to leave law school, witnessing this historic nomination is further confirmation that the sky is the limit. While the statistics say otherwise, the reality is Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's story is my story. When I see future Justice Jackson, I see promise. I see hope. I see change. I see opportunity. I see the possibility that despite the seemingly unrewarded and unrelenting sacrifices of my grandparents, my parents, and my personal struggles being treated as inferior simply because of the melanin in my skin, I am enough. Because of Judge Jackson, I can.
Yes. Yes. And I meant every word of that. That was how I felt in that moment. And she inspires me. She gives me hope to press forward in this field. It may be hard, and there will be people that come to distract, destroy, and attack our credibility. But if we follow her lead and look to her temperament and just follow her example, we can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, it's hard being the first, but from what I'm hearing today and from those over the airwaves, and can always hear because this show is archived on our social media channel, YouTube channel, website. From what I'm hearing, she won't be the last because we've got two phenomenal future legal scholars on the call now. And we're humbled to have you and grateful to have you as well. Ms. Staci Dukes, who is the president of the Southern University chapter of National Black Law Student Association, BALSA, and also Ms. Ebony Cormier, who is also a part of the National Black Law Student Association, Southern University law student, my former constitutional law student, and an HBCU White House scholar. Thank you so much for being with us here on State of Water.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Dr. Claville.
Absolutely. God bless. So you heard it here. The view from in the room. It was a phenomenal experience for all of us, and we're truly humbled and grateful to be a part of history. But guess what? We're making history every day because you're listening to us and we're giving you the information that you need, bringing movers and shakers and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. Join us every Sunday live at 1 p.m. And you could also stream us at wnsbonline.org, as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, from the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Dr. Claville, your host and executive producer. From our producer here in the studio, Marvin Folks, congratulations again on being accepted to the PhD program here at Old Dominion University in computer science. Everyone, we'll see you next Sunday. God bless.